Listen to part of a discussion in an art appreciation class. The professor is discussing French landscape artists. The subject of landscape artists.
I want to continue with the subject of landscape artists. In France, during the mid-1800s, there was a school of artists known as the Barbizon School. They were working in France in the village of Barbizon. Their goal was to make rural art seem more real. This school of artists was breaking away from academic art which was being taught in Europe because that type of art was characterized by use of historical and mythological characters and events. Academic art also had a moralistic tone, and the artists of the Barbizon School wanted nature and the countryside to more truly represent life as it was.
So could they be called realists?
Well, actually, they were part of the French realist movement. You know, realism looks at art in an objective manner. The realists take a subject and paint it as they see it. They don't idealize their subjects. They, the realists, also were not happy with the style of painting taught by the academics. And because the Barbizon School artists were also realists, they were part of the influence on the Impressionists. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but remember that the Barbizon School of Artists was part of the realism movement, that they influenced the Impressionists, and they also are thought to have been the beginning of modernism because they were such individualist thinkers and painters.
So what you're saying is that if an artist saw a field of cows or horses, a stream, and some trees, he would paint them just as he saw them, sort of like true to life. And like nature really is?
Exactly. And some of the artists of the Barbizon School also painted people they saw in rural settings. They showed the working classes in their surroundings. If they were farmers or woodsmen, the artist showed them as they were, their surroundings, their clothing, their expressions, while working, everything. A natural and straightforward look. And of course they were rejected by the great salons of Paris because they were challenging and trying to change the style of art which was popular and accepted at that time period.
Well, were there any famous Barbizon School artists?
Of course. Maybe not as famous as Rembrandt or Van Gogh or Picasso, but very important and well known. Have any of you read or heard about any names associated with the Barbizon School? No? Well, the man who led the movement was Theodore Rousseau. Now, you have all heard of the French philosopher Rousseau, but they are not one and the same.
Well, are there any monuments or tributes to these French painters to help make them famous?
I don't know about monuments, but the little village of Barbizon and the area around the village have some museums and events that honor the lives of some of these painters. You know, Barbizon has a population of under 2,000 people and is about an hour's drive from Paris. It is near the edge of the Fontainebleau forest and is somewhat rural. The works of some of the realists are also exhibited in the area. Barbizon is referred to as the village of artists, and the people of the Barbizon area are proud of this heritage. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about Rousseau.
I'm sorry, how do you spell Rousseau?
It's spelled Roussseau. Theodore Rousseau was born in Barbizon in 1812. He loved the tranquil village life, and he loved nature, even as a child. In his younger years, he worked for a while at a sawmill, but then he began painting. He studied with artists and learned the academic style, but he wanted to paint nature as he saw it, not with mythological characters or in a stylized manner. He wanted his paintings to be pure landscapes as they actually were. The academic landscape artist rejected his way of thinking, and he was no longer permitted to have his paintings exhibited at the Salon in Paris.
Well, did he have any way to challenge the Salon?
And were there actually people who liked his work?
Well, he didn't challenge the Salon. He kept his Paris studio and continued painting there during the winters, but he did return to his village in the summers and begin associating with others who had the same beliefs about paintings that he did.
Was he famous at this time?
And was he earning any money for living expenses?
Well, yes, to both questions. He was becoming famous, but he was still really poor by our standards. It was after some of these rejections that he formed the Barbizon School. After the French Revolution in 1848, Rousseau began to be recognized internationally as an excellent artist. If you remember the plight of the common people and their challenges to nobility during the times of the Revolution, you can understand why rural scenes and common people would become popular paintings. Although he gained international recognition, he remained in Barbizon and died there in 1867.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer.
Number 24. What is the discussion mainly about? Number 25. How does the professor introduce the discussion? Number 26. What is not true about Rousseau? Click on two answers. Number 27. According to the discussion, what did the Barbizon School think was wrong with the academic school of painting?
Listen again to part of the discussion, then answer the question.
And of course they were rejected by the great salons of Paris, because they were challenging and trying to change the style of art which was popular and accepted at that time period.
Number 28. What does the professor mean when she says this?
And of course they were rejected by the great salons.
Listen again to part of the discussion, then answer the question.
Was he famous at this time?
And was he earning any money for living expenses?
Number 29. What can be inferred about the students?
Listen to part of a conversation between two students. American football.
Jim, are you going to the game on Saturday?
Well, I hadn't thought too much about it.
Well, you really should think about it, and you could come with me.
Well, I really don't understand American football or all the excitement about playing against certain schools.
Well, if you have a few minutes now, let's go to the cafeteria and get a cola, and I will explain why it's so exciting and part of a campus experience.
Sure. I have an hour before my next class.
Well, first of all, Saturday's game is the most important game of the season. It is going to be exciting because both teams are really good. You told me that you don't understand American football, but I can explain it to you. I know that the word football may mean soccer to you because you are an international student, but the two are very different. In American football, each team is trying to make a touchdown, and to do that they start the game by tossing a coin and one team kicks to the other.
Okay, but I don't understand too much of what happens after that.
Right. Well, after the kickoff, the team with the ball has 4 times to try to go 10 yards down the field to the opponent's goal post. They can run or pass the ball. If they gain enough yards, then they get 4 more tries.
Well, if they make it all the way down the field and cross the final line, is that a touchdown?
Exactly. And that score is worth 6 points. Then they have a chance to earn an extra point, which means they can kick the ball through the goal post or run the ball into what is called the end zone for 1 or 2 points. 1 if kicking and 2 if running. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then the other team gets to try?
Right. Now, if one team gets close to the goal line but only has 1 more down, wait a minute. Let me back up. Each of the 4 tries is called a down. First, second, third and fourth. If a team doesn't make 10 yards by the 3rd down, it has to decide whether to keep trying and give up the ball to the other team or continue and try to make the rest of the 10 yards.
Okay, then tell me what you were going to say about what happens if a team gets close to the final line but only has 1 more chance?
Well, what happens is this. The team can either try to keep going, and if it doesn't make a touchdown, the other team will get the ball wherever the ball is. The other thing that will probably happen is that the team with the ball will try for a field goal. That means the team will try to kick the ball through the goalpost, just like after a touchdown, but this time they will only get 3 points if their kick is successful. Understand?
Yeah, I think I'm getting the idea, but it is still kind of confusing.
Well, I really think you would enjoy the game and watching the crowd and the band at half-time. If you aren't working Saturday afternoon, it would be a great break from studies. We could meet at about 12:15 and walk to the stadium. The game starts at 1:30 and the pre-game activities are great. The game will be over about 4:30, so you would have your evening to do what you wanted. How about it?
Well, it does sound like fun. Would you be willing to explain more to me as the game goes along if I don't understand something?
Of course. Why don't you walk over to my dorm? It's on the way from your dorm to the stadium, and then we can go from there.
Okay, I will be at your dorm about 12:15. Thanks for asking me to go, and thanks for explaining the game. I think it will be a fun way to spend a Saturday afternoon. I have to run to class now, but I will see you Saturday.
Great. So glad you want to go. See you Saturday.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer.
Number 30. What does Bob ask Jim? Number 31. What does Bob imply about football? Number 32. What is an example Bob gives Jim about the game? Number 33. Where will Bob and Jim meet to walk to the game?
Listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the question.
The game starts at 1:30 and the pre-game activities are great. The game will be over about 4:30, so you would have your evening to do what you wanted. How about it?
Well, it does sound like fun. Would you be willing to explain more to me as the game goes along if I don't understand something?
Of course.
Number 34. What does Bob mean when he says this?
Of course.